You fucked it up. This is not going to be an Angry Joe style video. I just always want to do that. You know, I go out for a couple of days and this is what happens. They picked the goddamn weekend to give us this latest information drop. If you don't know what I'm talking about, which is very unlikely, but if you don't know, Kogias Lost Stories announced that they'll be shutting down the game. The global version, not the Japanese one, just the global version. So for those who are panicking about the Japanese, it should be fine. And to be honest, this is not really that surprising. There were tons of signs that this was going to occur from, I believe people said that their payments were no longer being accepted for the given passes. We didn't get the birthday Zaku banner, which was bullshit. How we got the first year anniversary, the main character, we got that pilot early, the shortened banners, and so forth. What we knew was probably going to happen. So many of you probably have lots of questions, and in this video, I'm going to answer them. Let's start with the actual announcement that the game is closing down, which you probably saw on Facebook. They finally posted on Twitter, and some idiot, no offense, they probably weren't dumb, but it seemed like it was a mistake. The person posted very early on Discord. So let's get through this real quick. I think it's all the same, but I wanted to read them anyhow. So here's the Facebook page, and here's the actual post, and it says, to our loyal devisers, we are incredibly grateful for your continued love and support of Kogias Lost Stories. We are unfortunate to announce that as a result of a decision made by the Kogias Lost Stories management team, service for Kogias Lost Stories will end on August 29th, 2024. Players will not be able to log into their accounts once this period has passed. We sincerely apologize for the decision made and ask for your understanding regarding this matter. The schedule regarding the game service moving are as follows. Players will no longer be able to download or pay for new service related to the game starting from 7/29/2024. Wait, download or pay for new services? Oh. Okay, we'll get to that later. Service for the game and the game's official social media accounts will end on August 29, 2024. Once again, I want to say thank you to all the devisers who played and enjoyed Kogias Lost Stories. And then I think on Twitter, looks like it's exactly the same. I know I said Twitter weird. That's how I am sometimes. And then here's the Discord one. Yeah, it's exactly the same too. Okay. So one thing that disturbs me is that it says they're not going to add any pay or downloadable stuff after this month, which means I don't think there's going to be any new banners, which is complete bullshit, and we'll get to that in a bit. But now let's go through the questions you guys are probably having at this point, which is why this game closed down and what I'll be doing as a result, right? That's what you want to know, so let's get to that. Now, normally I would have maybe a script written up or something of nature, but here I just wrote a bunch of bullet notes or bullet points on a OneNote page. I'm just going to go through them. That's why my eyes will be going to, I guess it'd be the right, but your left. So let's do that. Okay, so why is the game shutting down? Well, simply put, it's not making any money, right? It's a live service game. If it's not making a certain amount of money every month, it's gonna close down. The Japanese version, I think, is making over 100,000 a month. The global version, I don't even want to know how much it was making. If I had to guess, maybe under 10K. It was not performing well. And one other thing I forgot to mention is that the Chinese and Korean version, I believe, or whatever that was, remember that merged also with this global version, so that's gone as well. I mean, it was gone before, but now it's officially gone. And I remember reading on a Reddit post for that change that the global version, you know, the one we have, or won't have anymore rather, it actually wasn't doing that well even 5 months ago, which makes sense because, again, they were rushing banners. Anyhow, the game wasn't making any money, right? So why wasn't it making any money? Well, I have a bunch of reasons here that I'm going to list off. The first major one, and there's a bunch of sub-points for this, is that it had bad management. Komoe Games fucked Kogias Lost Stories. Okay, there was no need for this to happen. I'm not saying the game would have lasted forever, but it definitely would have gone through 1 year if you had anyone else who actually gave a shit managing this game. So let's talk about how they fucked it up. First of all, graphical bugs, okay? How many times are you playing the story and something stupid happened on screen? I can think of maybe a couple times, maybe 3 to 4 times, and they were very noticeable. This was especially apparent because trying to go through the event story for the Chinese Federation and also Chapter 13, and I couldn't because there were some graphical issues that broke the game. And that's super frustrating because I'm only playing this terrible gacha game. Well, it's not terrible, but it feels like it sometimes because I'm invested in the story. So the fact that I can't even play through the story because of these damn graphical issues pisses me off. And you might be thinking, okay, it's a couple things. What's the problem? The problem is a lack of detail, okay? I understand there's going to be issues in a game, obviously. There could be some edge cases that occur when you do X and Y on, this certain stage, whatever. That's fine, okay? Those happen. But this is something that a QA team could have found easily just from playing through the story. When I posted a bug on the Discord server, which I think the team never looked at, by the way, but anyways, I posted my bug, other people could reproduce it easily. A bug that has 100% reproducibility in something that people are going to normally engage with the game should have been fixed. It never should have even been downloaded or sent to us. Now you might say maybe it was working before and they broke it with something else. Fine, but have the QA team do some older checks of what happened, regressive checks, just to make sure they didn't break anything else. Just look at the code base, the repo, and see what the new code affects, and just check all those areas. It's not that complicated. Anyways, those graphical issues were a problem with the game, and it just shows the management didn't give a shit. And there's more examples of this. Next we have is the gameplay bugs. So there are certain issues in the game where things just didn't work properly or menus were fucked up. The most obvious example was in the recent Nightmare Frame boss battle event that I joked about, where if you hit the information page on the actual menu itself, or not the menu, but in the page for the Nightmare Frame boss battle event, if you hit the information that explains how the event works, it showed you the information of the half anniversary event. How do you mess that up? You should have had the information from the Nightmare Frame boss battle event. Again, it's not like these things necessarily break the game or ruin the experience, but it just shows a lack of interest from the management team, and probably there was no quality assurance team as well working on this game. That's the problem. These things individually that I'm going through are not that bad, but when you combine them, it paints a bad picture of what Komoe Games was doing with Code Geass Lost Stories, the global release. There might have also been some gameplay issues that they addressed. I think they did, I don't know. But for the most part, it just seemed to be in the presentation and other broken stuff. So it was kind of frustrating. Again, it wasn't always a problem, but the fact that some of these simple things existed pissed me off. Again, if it was a niche thing, I wouldn't be as upset, but for basic things, this is unacceptable, especially since people were dropping several thousands of dollars into this game, okay? Respect people's money, and you didn't, and that's why this game is closing down. Alright, next thing, arena mode. It never changed. Well, that's not true. It only changed once. We should have had several maps. Do you know how frustrating it was that we went to the first one, which we had for, I don't know, months on end. We got the new one, and that's it. There were so many cool maps that many people never got to experience, and you never will now because the Japanese version is way ahead of that, and they're never gonna, well, they might reproduce them or rerun them, but it'd be a complete different take on it, and it wouldn't be the same experience. There were so many cool maps in arena mode on the Japanese side that the global never got to experience. They never changed it once. What a pain in the dick that was. I'm so upset about that because all the new Nightmare Frames we got, like the Mordred and the Gwaine, really shined in the future maps, and most people never got a chance to experience that. Same with C2 in the Gwaine, the melee one. I was saying in my videos, I guess it was for that one, that C2 in the Gwaine, the white officer C2, was really powerful because you can just have her go through arena mode and take all the towers really easily. And unfortunately, you can kind of do that in this current map, but it's just not the same compared to the others. I think arena mode was really hated by people and still hated. I understand that, but one of the cool parts was the fact that they kept changing it up and forcing you to try different tactics to complete it and making you think about things in a different way. Of course, we didn't get a chance to experience that on the global side. That was something that I felt was really basic, but it never happened. Moving on, we have the shortened banners. I already discussed this, but let's just rehash this one more time. During the Valentine event and every single event after that, they for some reason shortened the banners. And this was obviously for money because they wanted to get through these banners as fast as possible to catch up to the Japanese and also the first year anniversary. So if they keep going from banner to banner, people will spend more and more money because obviously there's new characters cycling in and out. However, they could have just overlaid the banners, which would have solved the problem, or just extend them out for a week. What's so frustrating then, and I'll say it now, was that for the events, they gave away a free rank 3 pilot, which was sometimes meta relevant. But you couldn't get that rank 3 meta pilot unless you were a whale or complete extra. And usually to complete extra, you had to be a whale. And that was bullshit. And even if you complete all the extra missions or complete enough of them to get enough of the resource to buy the pilot, you had nothing left from the store. This ruined the whole point of the game when those events were for the budget players. And they somehow killed them in this process. It's just... You guys understand what you did, you motherfuckers. All you had to do was have the overlaying banners. It was not that complicated. Or give us more currency. It was just, they were trying... Oh my god, the math team who worked this out, fuck you guys. You found a way to make the game even less fun at times by doing this. The math team and the financial team were going through the game to figure a way to screw over the players to get through things as fast as possible, while forgetting the fact that the game has to actually be fun, right? It has to be a fun experience, guys. Maybe if you did that, people would have given them more money. Now you might say, well, they shortened the banners because people weren't giving them money. Well, yeah, because there was another issue that kept happening in the game, which I'll get to in a moment, and I know you guys are all thinking it right now. If you created a good experience with the players, then people would have gladly given more money, and this game wouldn't be in this current situation. Anyways, moving on, the next thing I have here is banners were ignored or ones weren't added. This was something that happened towards the end, but I still feel like it was a symptom of the bad management. I touched on this earlier, but some of the banners were messed up. For example, we didn't get Birthday Suzaku. Despite his birthday occurring, I believe it was in this month, we didn't get Birthday Suzaku when we obviously should have. They released the MC first year anniversary Britannia unit earlier than we should have. I think that was a mistake, but they passed it in through anyways. That was kind of an interesting, I guess, change of pace for the gameplay, but it was still not good enough. And all that stuff again leads to the bad management and people not knowing what the fuck they should be doing to increase engagement in the game and also prevent it from shutting down. It's just stupid stuff like that that pissed me off. So moving on, I have weird errors like including pilots in the archive that aren't in the game. So many people kept complaining, and I 100% agree, that you should not have pilots in the archive section that we physically haven't gotten yet. I believe Urbe was in there. That was the big one people mentioned. There was a couple others, and Night Frames as well. What the fuck are you guys doing? Why are you showing things that we don't have yet? The whole point of the archive is to show everything that's been released in the game up to that point, not what's going to be in the game. If that was the case, just throw every goddamn pilot in there. A classic case of copying and pasting code and not checking anything before you send it down to the players. A good management team, a good quality assurance team would have caught that easily. But no, that crap happened. Also, there was random T-poses in arena mode, which people pointed out. There were also certain cases where the text for the information that was given out was incorrect, or to talk about things that were not related to the specific thing, in addition to discussing things that were related. That happened all the time too. Just really stupid issues. It's kind of similar to a point I mentioned earlier, but it's just so many damn bugs that were unnecessary and could have easily been found by any competent team. The next thing is the communication, as I wrote down here. This really hurts me almost as much as everything else, because one of the problems with this game, and this relates to the management, is that there was almost no communication between the players and themselves, okay? Yes, they told you when new banners were coming out and events and things like that, but if there was any critical changes to the game, bug fixes, maintenance, whatever, forget it. You learned nothing about it. There are two tabs in the information section in the, I guess it's menu of Lost Stories. The first one's the announcements, I believe. The second one is maybe it's character stuff. And the last one is, I guess, maintenance. The second and third tab were always empty for the entire game's life cycle. And that pissed me off because on the Japanese side, they give you updates on everything. All the tabs are filled no matter what. But in this case, no, they never were. I had to make a video discussing all the changes, I think it was during the half anniversary event, because they didn't tell you that in any of the tabs or even on Twitter. Nothing was conveyed to the players. And by the way, if you're wondering, the changes were about, I think it was like you could skip bosses, and it was a video on my channel. I would tell you to go check it out or link in the description, but it's pointless now, so who cares? The point is, if the management team isn't good at communicating with the players what's going on with the game, then why would players be invested in the future of the game? Maintenance stuff? Okay, thanks for telling me that, but what did you do in the maintenance besides adding the new pilots and the banners? It's really important to be upfront with the players on what's going on, because it makes it seem like you guys aren't doing anything, which is what it felt like during the entire experience of playing this game. People wrote down bugs in Discord server. Were any of them addressed? Did we know they were being addressed? Who the fuck knows? That's a problem this game had. No communication whatsoever with the players, at least anything besides the obvious stuff they had to tell you. Twitter is a good place to say stuff, but hell, they never did. They never did. Okay, the next thing I have here is marketing issues. People are bringing this up on not my Discord server, or it could have been, I don't know, the last 24 hours have just been a big blur. Anyways, there's been no marketing done for this game, or very little. They had a bunch of influencers when it first came out to talk about the game, which was stupid. You should have asked someone like me to do it. I actually covered the game and could have promoted it all the time, but whatever. That's what they chose to do. Personally, I would have taken that money and invested into making the game a lot better. That way you could have addressed all these bugs and the game would still be around right now, but whatever. It was your money to spend, not mine. It was a terrible decision regardless. So the thing about the marketing issues is that you would think with Rose Other Capture currently airing in the global side and also the films in Japan, there'd be like this, I don't know, newfound interest in Code Geass, right? Well, yet the marketing team didn't take advantage of this, if there was one. I mean, how cool would it have been to have some kind of cross promotion with Rose Other Capture and the global version? I know you can't get the new characters in, but you could have done something in honor of the fact that it was airing. Maybe the global version of Lost Stories advertised Rose, or vice versa, or Twitter could have mentioned this on their account, but like nothing. There was nothing done for that. There should have been more interest in the game because of Rose Recapture, but it seems like there was just no one gave a shit. It felt like they just made this game and they kind of left it in a little corner and had like some idiot watch it as opposed to someone who gives a shit. Because I can tell you on the Japanese side for Code Geass Lost Stories, they are constantly cross-promoting with the main Code Geass Twitter page for Rose Recapture or anything else. They're always constantly posting each other's stuff on their pages, or the feeds rather. You can tell that the two sides are working together. That also includes shilling for merchandise, which I think is overly priced and completely unnecessary, but the point is they were working together to try to promote both their stuff, and with this version of the game, it seems like no one gave a shit. There were like 1,000 followers, I think, on Twitter. There should have been way more, because Rose has been pretty popular, well, somewhat popular. The views are pretty high on certain videos on Twitter that I've seen, so a lot of people are interested in this. Could have been some cross promotion there, and it just felt like there was none. The game only had a lot of marketing early on, and then it just gave a shit and stopped talking about it. Again, they went through influencers for like a week, and that was it. So after that point, the game's interest died out. And that's another thing I forgot to mention. Another reason why I knew the game was not going to last too long is because my views on my videos covering the game have steadily decreased over time. It used to be I would get between 1,000 to 5,000 views on any banner video I would cover. Now I can barely crack 1,000 if I'm lucky. So clearly people's interests have dropped, and they've dropped because of all the things I'm mentioning and things I'll keep mentioning throughout this video. So the marketing, yeah, it was terrible. Who the hell managed that? Or rather, why wasn't there anyone managing it? And then we get to the big one. The one you guys know I'm going to talk about, the one thing I'm pissed off the most about this game, and that's the translation issues. The translations in this game have been a mixed bag. For the most part, they're okay, or they were okay. But there are many cases where they were not, okay? When they had translations for pilot skills or Nightmare Frame skills, sometimes it was empty, sometimes words were in the wrong places, sometimes translations were outright incorrect, which deceived players. Remember Daddy Dalton? Everyone thought he cloaked pilots on deployment or something because that's what the effect read, even though he actually decloaked. So people summoned a pilot for an effect that didn't exist. If you think about the scumminess behind that, it's pretty bad because people probably did some, whaling for that character, thinking they were getting one thing and they got something else. The Gawain was another example. The effect was completely wrong and the way that they played out was wrong too. They ruined that whole Nightmare Frame's abilities. That pissed me off Like I said, certain wireframes had no information whatsoever. Like I think it was the Panzer Hummel had nothing there. And just generally speaking, the translations were they were lackluster for explaining certain critical elements because one of the problems of Lost Stories is the game is kind of complicated, and I'll get to that later on, but it's a complicated game considering all the interactions between different pilots and understanding how the abilities work. So the fact that the translations were not adequate enough to explain things besides obviously the simple effects was frustrating. We're talking like having the wrong percentages for things, having the wrong time something this, or even just the way it was worded was weird. This is where the game faltered. Now, for the story, most of the translations were fine, same with the menus, but there were many cases where there were no translations available. So instead, you just had Japanese text. There were certain pilots in the game, like the first year anniversary main character, where every time you had the intimacy level go up, he would of course talk or she would talk. No translations for that. I think Claudio didn't have any translations for weeks, which was bullshit, and the list goes on. And what bothers me about this, and it relates to other stuff as well, these are not complicated bugs, okay? If you had a basic QA team who just went through the story, played through the game for about 20 to 30 minutes, you'd find all these things easily. Or just look at the source code and you would have found it that way as well. There were so many ways to do this, and of course, none of it was done. And that's what bothers me about it, because yeah, the translations were fine for the most part, right? But there were issues where they were not. Unacceptable considering how much money people were putting into this game. Another thing to consider is that this is the reason why people are playing this game. It's a localized version of the Japanese version, which means that we want to see a translation for all the stories, characters, and things like that in this game. So how do you fuck up the main part of this game? How do you do that exactly? And more importantly, this shouldn't be that complicated from a programming standpoint, because all you're doing is taking the base code, which is the Japanese side, and you're just replacing, I assume, just telling it to point to something else to grab the same information. Is it really that complicated to do that? They're not reprogramming things from scratch, they're not making it from scratch, they're just taking the same game and they're just adding the translations for it. I don't know, maybe it's because I worked with a team that did localization back in the day, and when they did it didn't seem that difficult. Obviously they had to put work into it, right? It required work, but there was a whole process to doing it. I feel like that process was ignored, with most of the teams saying, you know, if 80% is good, we can ship it out. The entire purpose of this game was to be an English translation of the Japanese one. It cannot be 80%, it has to be 100%. If not, don't release it. What the fuck was that about? These people only cared about money. That's it. That's what's so frustrating. I know these live service games have to make money, but you know what? You can also create a great experience where people don't mind giving you money. Don't be so obvious about it. This version of the game felt very obviously like a cash grab. Not initially, but as the months went on, it certainly felt that way. So moving on from the management, there are other reasons why this game failed, which I wrote down is the appeal. And so that's kind of unfortunately a problem. If you are not a Code Geass fan, then I don't think you would have liked this game, because there are some problems with it. I'll get to that in a second, but I'm just saying from an appeal standpoint, this was made for Code Geass fans and literally nobody else. I know some people say it's a better version of Arknights, which maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but Arknights had a larger appeal because it's not tied to a specific IP. This game is tied to an IP that's over, I don't know if it's 20 years old, because it came out in 2006, so it's almost 20 years old. So beyond that fan base, no one's really going to want to play it. Although, now that I think about it, there are some smaller IPs like Bungo Stray Dogs that has a gacha game that's still going on. I'm talking about the global version. So maybe it's more than that, I don't know, but I guess the appeal of this game didn't go beyond people who liked Code Geass. I know some people who, even though they liked Code Geass, they still didn't want to play the game because they didn't like it for whatever reason, which is completely understandable, by the way. I get it. Another thing to consider is that the audience in Japan for Code Geass is much larger than the North American one. This is extremely obvious based on how they marketed that game in Japan and continue to market it versus how it was marketed here. So that's the problem. You relied on an older audience, you didn't make a new one, and that's why the game failed as well. There was just not enough people interested in playing it, which is unfortunate because I think the story is really good, and I think anyone who's liked the original anime would like this story, but again, there's just not enough people out there. I know the subreddit has almost 300,000 users and it grew by 180,000, I think, just this year alone, but still, that's not enough people. How many of them are active? How many of them would want to play this game, right? It's not good enough compared to something like Bleach or Dragon Ball. I think Jujutsu Kaisen has one, I don't know, or does Black Clover have one? I have no idea. The point is, some of those bigger IPs can last longer. Although, interesting enough, the FMA mobile game, which was only released in Japan, shut down as well. So maybe it's one of those things where some IPs just can't handle it. I don't know. Koei management, who the fuck knows? The point is, I think the appeal for this game wasn't that great, and that's why it didn't last that long. You gotta have a game that appeals to more than just your core audience, and Lost Stories couldn't do that, which relates to the next part, which is the gameplay itself. And this is the problem, right? It had bugs, and people didn't appreciate that, like I mentioned before, but there's other things besides that. The game itself, to put it simply, is kind of complicated. It's a very intense strategy game for a mobile, obviously. A normal RTS would blow us out of the water, but for a mobile game, it's kind of intense. It can be very difficult at times. The wall you get to towards the later part is extremely frustrating. I remember people were saying things early on when the game came out that it was too difficult, they weren't enjoying it, or they couldn't get characters they wanted because the pay system was bullshit, which I 100% agree, or the stamina was bullshit, also agree on that. So there was a lot of aspects of the game that were not user friendly. I know that Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail are not as difficult as this to play, so people gravitate towards that. I think FGO or Fate Grand Order is also better. Another thing about Fate Grand Order people were saying is that it had its own continuity, so you didn't have to know anything about the original series or any of the other spin-offs for Fate Zero or any of the Fate series in general to play it. But for Kogiash, it kind of had to know a little bit more, even though I don't think it's even true because the story in Kogiash Lost Stories took into account the different timelines, well, one timeline and the manga stuff, and it got you caught up to speed. You didn't have to read anything prior to understand what's going on, so I don't entirely agree, but I see where they were coming from. But now going back to issues with the game, it was over a year behind the Japanese version, and some people were fine with it. I was okay with that, but a lot of people were not, and nobody wants to play catch up for that long. It's kind of a pain in the ass because they're getting all this cool stuff. We have to wait so long to get there. There also were a lot of spoilers of the Japanese story, especially having Clarice and other characters, and so it kind of ruined the whole experience, I'm not gonna lie, and it also forced them to play catch up towards the end, so it was kind of frustrating. I was hoping that the global version, this is my crazy thing, because I thought it might happen, but maybe it would have been, when they released it, it would have been maybe a couple banners behind the Japanese side, which would have required a massive update, but why not? I guess that was too difficult for these people to do, so they instead chose to have it start from the beginning, like the other global releases. I guess that's how it's normally done. I think some friends told me that they're generally speaking behind the Japanese version, but for some players, that's just not acceptable, and I completely get that. Another thing that pissed me off is that you couldn't buy any SFX stuff in the store on the global side as you could for the Japanese. I have no idea why that was the case, but you couldn't do it. So that was bullshit. So I want to go over some of the reviews of this game to illustrate my point. Here is some 1-star ones. Okay, I can't speak on the gameplay or the monetization or anything else because I can't even play the game right. The entire screen is shifted about an inch to my left of my device, meaning the entire left edge of the UI is inaccessible. I absolutely hate it when the game treats me as though I'm stupid to put my own socks on. Forced tutorials like this are a toxic disease, making an annoying, sickly sweet kind of creepy child your tutorial guide isn't helping either. If your game design or UI design warrants a lengthy forced tutorial with no option to skip, you need to go back to square one and learn how to make games, only this time pay attention to class. I 100% agree the tutorial is a pain in the dick, especially if you want to re-roll in this game. Why couldn't you skip the damn thing? And the tutorial was kind of forced. I like the story elements to it, but I won't deny the fact that yeah, it was kind of bullshit. 100% agree, that was ridiculous. The story itself is interesting, but it's locked behind a super grindy gameplay loop. If it was just the visual novel, the story would be a 5 out of 5. Not only this, but you can hit levels that are impossible just with your team comps blocking your progression. Yeah, by the way, I also agree with this one as well. If this was just a visual novel, then yeah, it would have been fine, but it was not a visual novel. It was this crappy game at times. Why couldn't they just release a visual novel? People would have been fine with that because the story's actually good. That's what hurts my fucking soul because the story's actually good. Genocide Code was a complete trash fire. This game actually has a really good story. It's even better than Rose Later Capture, but they had to hide it behind this goddamn paywall. So I kind of agree with this. Moving on. Well, as far as I can tell, the main screen is gorgeous. It keeps saying unexpected error has occurred. Oh, that's bad. That's why. Okay. The game will appear like it's working, but in the background there's something catastrophically wrong. When you install about 2 gigabytes and the game will ask you to install a 120 megabyte file, Yeah, that kept happening all the time. I know what it's talking about. You'll hit 30% and then drop and go back to 30% 3 or 4 times before skyrocket 85. Yeah, who knows what hell was going on? That was really weird. The tutorial is terrible. Yep, agreed. Holy fuck, this is annoying to play. Dodgy connections and bugs keep appearing. Okay, I played it for a couple days and the game is very poorly optimized. Yeah, again, bad management. Another thing I forgot to mention, the game crashed all the time when I was playing it on BlueStack. You guys have watched my streams and you'll know this. We always kept track of how many times it kept crashing on me. Nothing's changed apparently in other people's experiences. So here's the 1 stars. Let's go to the 3 stars, which are kind of average. The game has a different take on the tower defense style. The B tier game from a god tier anime is a bit disappointing. You want players to play, but there's almost nothing dropping. Pizza slices, drops feel horrible and nearly difficult to form a decent enough team to clear the story. Progression is a grind. It absolutely is. I mean, there should be a button, even on the Japanese side, where you can just skip through all the story mode and all the missions if your team could easily beat it. The fact they make you play through all those really weak missions when you have a strong team makes no sense to me. It just wastes a lot of time. At least they've changed it now on the Japanese side where you have to play less of them. But the fact that you have to play through them if you could easily beat it based on your team's battle score is the problem. Moving on here, it's an alright tower defense game which involves lots of micromanagement and relatively slow unit, 9 frame growth opportunities. The pull rate for rare units, even on banner ones, is notably abysmal compared to other gacha games. You need multiple copies for them to be usable. It's a very much paid to play model. That very said, it's very easy to sim for the seasonal character design if you're a fan of the series. Yeah, I mean, those are all very valid complaints. You have to constantly get the duplicates to be somewhat, I would say, competitive. Although I will say you can get pretty far free to play. I got very lucky in my accounts, but you can get pretty lucky. Still though, yeah, it's a grind. I don't disagree with that. This is a pretty interesting, a pretty good little strategy game. The single player focus makes the game system much healthier to allow, and the graphics are charming, evoke an older generation, fitting with the series. The main issue I have is the maps are far too long. They are very long. So many bugs and glitches. The game already doesn't run that well, but there are instances where the assets don't just lose their textures, forcing a reset takes a while. Absolutely. Absolutely. It just keeps going. Gameplay issues, the tutorial sucks, crashes, bugs. Do you see what I'm saying? The management did not properly manage the game. A lot of people are complaining about stuff that could have easily been fixed. A skip button for the tutorial, or just manage the downloads better, or make the game less grindy. You know what I mean? It's just whatever. Moving on here, the initial story before Octa Exile is part 1 of the series. The battles are played by placing units on the correct place. Auto battles will happen. That's not all. If a big name comes into the field, the battle changes into a Fire Emblem kind of battle in which you select a tackling special thing to fight it out. Wait, is this a problem or not? I'm not sure. I couldn't tell that was a problem or not. I love this game. I love this game and I love this series. I want to get 100% better, so I must point out some issues. The game is not as smooth as it could be for a game coming out in 2023. I agree. There are not a lot of opportunities to grow your nightmare frames as they give you expansion options far later into your gameplay. It would be absolutely clutch if they had some type of English voice acting. Yeah, that's never going to happen. But yeah, nightmare frames are not there. Yeah, it's true, but I would go further and say there's not much to do with the nightmare frames or the pilots in general. The Japanese side is no different, right? You get the pilot. What can you do with them besides gameplay? You put them on your front screen, and you can view them in the archive section. Want to have some kind of mini game where they can partake in or something. It's a damn shame because it's cool to get the pilots, but you just stare through your home screen. Why can't they do other stuff? So I completely agree. There should be more stuff in general. And it just keeps going on. You guys got the idea. So there's just so many things that went wrong with this game, from the management to the appealing, the marketing, and then of course the game itself, which has problems. I only tolerate half of them because I'm a Code Geass fan. Otherwise I'd say fuck off to this and I'll do something else. It was the same for Janissary Code. And as I said many times, this didn't have to happen. The management should have been involved in this game. I'm not saying this would have solved the appeal issues, the marketing, or gameplay problems, but if the game itself ran smoothly, had almost no bugs in it, then maybe people would be a little more tolerable to the other problems. But when you combine all these things, the experience sucks and the players don't want to play the game. Okay, it's a mobile game. People can uninstall it as fast as they installed it. You have to understand that if you're producing these games, which I think they should obviously, since they've been doing this for a long time, but hey, I guess not, right? It seems obvious, but I guess it isn't. You gotta make these games fun so people don't get angry and rage quit, which I'm sure happened a ton with this game. As I said before, I wish this was just a visual novel. I wish they would still release a visual novel. You pay for maybe one time and then you could buy DLC for the different story missions like Akito, the events, Oz, whatever. But that's probably not going to happen because all they care about is making as much money in a short period of time while providing a crappy service. As I told people on Reddit, this game is designed to make money, not make sense. I'm not surprised that this happened. I'm just really annoyed. I stuck through with this game because of the translations, because I finally wanted to know what the story was about, and now I'll never get a chance to know without using fan-made translations or other third-party services, which is a complete disappointment. And also, I saved up a bunch of Sakuradite for the first year anniversary banner, and now it's never going to come, so I have to go spend it on the crappy generic one and hope to God I get something. And that's another thing too. I'll get to this in a moment, but if they don't release a banner, let's say tomorrow or something, that gives you access to every character that's ever existed in the game, and you can just spend all your currency to get it, then these people can fuck off, because in Janissary Code, they had a banner where you could just summon all the characters from events and so forth to close out the game. Which, you know what? Even though I hated that game, I respect them for doing that. If the game is going to end where, okay guys, no new banners, no new content, just summon whatever you have till the end, wow. Just wow, guys. And I was reading somewhere they might do some kind of account transferring. Don't count on it, but I would definitely wait a little bit before going crazy and summoning or spending all your stuff, your Sakuradite and your tickets. I don't think they're going to do that account transfer. I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to, because I already have 2 Japanese accounts on 2 different devices, and I have 2 DMM accounts. I am not going to make any more DMM accounts. It's already a pain in the ass switching from global to Japanese. I'm not going to keep logging in and out of accounts to play through like 4 rounds of the same shit. To be honest, as much as I love the global version in terms of translations when they were good, it was kind of getting a little taxing to play through 4 accounts. So on a selfish thing, I guess it's nice to only have to do 2 going forward. Okay, so now the second part of this video, which is what am I going to do on this channel going forward? As you guys know, this channel was dedicated to Code Geass Lost Stories. First, I talked about the Japanese side, then I went right to the global version. That's where most of my views came from. That's why I got to 1,000 subscribers, almost 2K by the way. Thanks to everyone who has subscribed to this channel. But the point is, with the game closing, that's my main source of content and probably revenue and everything else. So what's the plan going forward? Let's talk about the immediate and then the long term. So for the immediate, I have to do a lot of archiving of this game, just like I did for Janissary Code. So that includes grabbing all the assets that are translated. Hopefully they are translated. I have to record all the remaining stories. So we have our chapters. Chapter 13, I believe, and all the events. And then, of course, the 2 from the Lost Zero arc. God, if they could just finish the Lost Zero arc. You know what's so funny? Sorry to go on our tangent here, but that's what I cared about the most, because it had all the Ozita Reflection and Lancelot and Gurion stuff. And they never translate Ozita Reflection, so I just wanted more of that stuff. Anyways, I'm going to record footage for all of that stuff, and I'll post it on YouTube when it's done. I might even have archive streams, maybe late at night, where you guys can join in and watch me do this, because, hey, why not? If I gotta suffer, you gotta suffer with me too. Well, of course, if you want to. Once we know what the final banner is for this game, which I assume there will not be one, but if there is a final banner for the game, or if there isn't one, I'll pick a certain date, who knows when that'll be, and I'll just do one final live stream for Code Geass Lost Stories global version, where I'll just spend all my resources and see what I get and have some fun, I suppose, until the end. Expect that stream to be happening probably mid-August, so I have at least the rest of the month to enjoy those characters. So now let's talk about what this channel is going to do in the long term. I still want to continue making videos on the Nightmare frames, like they're broken as fuck. I think those are fun videos. And also the Code Geass Lost Stories versus the original anime. I want to make more of those videos because I think they're fun. I still want to do a review on Lost Stories. Maybe it'll be an autopsy. We'll think about that. I want to compare it to Janissary Code. I still haven't done that video. That's something I've been thinking about for a while now. People want me to do character reviews for the new Japanese character, since many people are jumping ship. Maybe I'll do that. I gotta be honest, I'm not a big fan of those. I do it for your benefit, but I don't really enjoy making those videos, so if I do, it might be like a quick short, as opposed to a long, drawn-out video, because it's kind of a pain in the ass to make those. I don't mind posting it in my community tab, of course, but actually making a video and talking about the character is a pain in the ass, because I have to summon the character and then show some gameplay, although I may not do that anymore and just give you guys some basic analysis. So I guess it depends on what format of that video you would prefer, but the big issue is just getting the gameplay, which always pissed me off. I also have some assets from Janissary code that I still haven't uploaded yet, so maybe I'll do that down the road as well. We will see. And then beyond Code Geass Lost Stories, there's other things I want to do. If you guys noticed, I was posting a bunch of polls about other games for the last several months because I knew something was going on because I had a drop in viewership for Code Geass Lost Stories. And those polls had games like Mass Effect, Halo, Bleach, Rebirth of the Souls, Dragon Ball Z Sparking Zero, and so forth. And so my plan for this channel is to start doing videos on those games. I don't know how I'm going to do it yet. I don't know if it's going to be tier list, character analysis, basic gameplay. I'm not sure. But what I want to do is at least live stream these games maybe a couple times a week, then take the highlights and post them on the YouTube channel. So I want to go on Twitch and do maybe a 1 to 2 hour live stream playing the game, then post the highlights on my YouTube channel and see how people respond to that. If they enjoy it, I'll continue that. If they don't, I'll stop doing that. The idea behind that is I can discuss topics while playing the game and then post those topics on the YouTube channel. And who knows, I could also do YouTube reactions and post those as well on the channel. I don't know. Right now, the door is open to seemingly limitless possibilities. Obviously, I'm doing this channel and also my main one, and I have a job, of course. So I don't have all the time in the world. So when I decide to commit to something, it has to be something that people are going to be interested in. I'm not expecting a million views per video, obviously, but a consistent viewership that can provide some level of income would be great. Otherwise, I feel like I'm wasting my time. And more importantly, you guys aren't enjoying the content because you're not watching it. If you're not watching it, means you don't care about it. So you're not getting any benefit from it. I'm not getting any benefit from it. So what's the point to any of that? I don't know how it's going to go down, but for now, like I said, I'm going to focus on just archiving Lost Stories, and probably after August, so September, you'll start seeing these new stuff happen after Lost Stories closes down. Well, the global version anyways. So those are my thoughts on the global version of Code Geass Lost Stories closing down. And I know it's a long video, but I had a lot of things to say. Hopefully this has been cathartic for certain people. It's been cathartic for me, for fuck's sake, to talk about this. I've dropped more F-bombs in World War II during this video because I'm just so upset about it, as I know many of you are. I was with you in Discord talking about it, and I assume we'll be doing more of that down the road. I didn't think my last character review would be on C2, the Ashford one, but hey, that's what it was. So I guess there's something good about that, I suppose. Ended on a good note. I don't know, but yeah, there were a lot of fun moments covering this game. I mean, the English Zaku was definitely a highlight for me. I remember posting the video on Lelouch and Colin when they came out, the rank 3 Colin and the rank 4 Lelouch, the 0-1, and getting like 5k views and absolutely get my mind blown by the interest in the game. And it's been a lot of fun overall interacting with the fan base. That's been the most fun about doing this channel, my other channel, and just in general. I really enjoy the interactions, and I've enjoyed even these, even though it's been unfortunately a terrible situation. But I still enjoy that, and I look forward to that down the road. And thanks to everyone who recently joined the Discord server. I know not much is going on there right now, but there will be, I promise. It was actually going to happen this month, but now because of Lost Stories, it's not going to happen until next month. That's just how the cookie crumbles. The timing of this was a complete disaster because I'm already behind on videos for the Royal Zeta Recapture and other Code Geass related things on my other channel, and now I have to deal with this bullshit. This is very selfish, but why couldn't they announce the shutdown in November, where I had more time to do this? I guess the thought was they didn't want to have the game go past a year, because then they would have to release the first year anniversary banner, even though they don't have to do anything, right? I don't know. It must have been a really bad situation financially. I have no idea, but I'm sure they were losing every single month, and it must have come to the point where they just cannot tolerate this anymore. So who the hell knows? We probably won't know all the details because they'll never tell us. And frankly, it would only make me more disgusted to know everything. Anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, obviously leave a like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and share your thoughts in the comment section below about how Code Geass Lost Stories affected you, your thoughts on it, and so forth. Until then, I would normally recommend different videos, but I guess in this case, here's 2 random ones. Who knows what they are, but check them out right here.